video you're about to watch has been designed to take you deeper, higher, and wider into Yahweh. Enjoy, and please subscribe. Thank you.
Father, we just want to thank you and praise you and worship and glorify and magnify your awesome, majestic name, just for the fact of the blood of Yeshua, that we can enter in the name of Yeshua, we can enter into the fullness of who he is and understand that he was our example and everything and all that he is, we can enter into. We step into the yard, the hay, the shen, the bath, the hay. We're beginning to understand that there's dimensions within the name of Yeshua that we can get to enhance, and will enhance our lives as we step deeper into it. That's by seeing, being a spirit being is key to receiving the revelation of what your spirit and who your spirit is. Entering into Yeshua, entering into the fullness of who Yahweh is, living, moving out of your being fully in this majestic, awesome, glorious, infinite God that we in the natural can never fathom or understand. In the natural we can never even begin to think of how majestic he is. But in the spirit it's all revealed, stepping into this majestic God that opens up realms and kingdoms and dimensions and shows us who we are in him and who he is in us and who he is in the universes and who he is in all of the galaxies. And Father, it is incredible to see the expansion of creation still going on because of who you are. And nothing has ever stopped. Your words of creation can never stop. It continues and continues because the infinite God that we serve is beyond time and space. It's not limited to any dimension, any realm, any way, fashion, or form. You are above and beyond all and everything that we can ever imagine. Father, you want to pour all of that into us. We are created in your image. And as the ecclesia, those who believe that you are in us and we are in you, are beginning to understand. We're beginning to see because you are revealing to us mysteries and secrets. And it is mind-blowing. So Father, tonight, I ask that you will just open up to us, Father, so we can begin to understand that everything you revealed to us was not written. Everything that you revealed to us was not written. There's things that you want to reveal to us that was spoken. There's things, mysteries, secrets that is still to be revealed in the Word, which is Yeshua, Jesus Christ. And as we step in to the yard, understanding the power of the yard, understanding the gate and the fire dimension that it opens up to pour into us who you are. The hay, the shen, the vav, the hay, that's just the 4 letters that spells Yeshua. And we look at the 3 letters that spell Yahweh, and it represents the 4 faces. We step into the ox, into the eagle, into the lion, into man, and we begin to operate and legislate from out of your dimension, out of who you are, and we legislate that into the earth and bring creation into alignment. Father, we slowly but surely will begin to understand who we are. So as we do the courts tonight, Father, I pray that you open our hearts up. Let's perceive it, let's run with it. And I ask, Father, that you will absolutely open our spirit beings up to receive from you in the name of Yeshua. Amen. Okay. Hope you guys are doing well. Hope y'all on fire for the Messiah. I've teached on this several times, and I have to be honest, these are Ian Caton's notes. And I'm engaged in every one of these courts, but I have not worked out of every one of these courts, if that makes any sense. There's certain courts that you have to do certain things in to even be able to go in to the other courts. So we'll discuss this as we go on. And as I've been growing and as I've matured, the Father has allocated to me as a spirit being, according to what's written on my scroll, certain states within the United States that I get to govern in certain places regarding what was written on my scroll. So while I'm governing these states in the spirit, I need to operate in the courts. And of course, because there's no handbook on it, it's taken a little bit longer than I anticipated it would take. So the revelation that I have for what's to be established in my life right now regarding the states the Father has given me, there's 24 states, and they will increase as I get more revelation on what I'm supposed to be doing in it. And of course, seeing what's already been done in it, the dragons, the giants that's been slain, the re-establishing of the mountains with sons and daughters that's occupying that space, with the prince warring angels governing and again being in charge over the mountains that the Father has placed in these different states. Mountains meaning a sphere of rule, a place of authority that was given to man that was taken by Satan, and slowly but surely we've taken it back. Right? That's why all of a sudden we begin to see through the eyes of Yeshua into more than just the earth. We're going into the atmosphere. We're beginning to see planets. We're going deeper into galaxies. We're beginning to understand there's universes. It's not just what we thought it was. Our God is an infinite God, and He's constantly expanding, and He's given us dominion and authority over all of it. And we don't even understand what it means to govern your family, but slowly but surely we're beginning to take responsibility for who we are. And the church has been teaching us who they think we are. And I want to make a clear statement here, and I got this from my mentors, and it really just made excessive sense. If you stand back in the church age and you look at what was taught, it literally comes across as Jesus in you, your hope of glory. But as the ecclesia, it is a different revelation. It's Yeshua in me and me in Him. It shifts me from occupying space in the earth into the kingdom of heaven, heavenly places where I'm seated in Christ. That opens doorways and gateways where I go in beyond the veil and I begin to operate out of His kingdom. So as the son or daughter operating out of His kingdom, there's certain things that I need to know and understand. And much of that which I need to understand and I need to walk in is not written. And of course, we only want what is written. We only want what is physical. We only want what we can physically see in our physical bodies because we're still human beings. And of course, that's the problem, because we were never created to be human beings. We were created to be spirit beings. And so the Father's desire for you is to begin to understand that you are a spirit. That's your primary being. That's who you. That's what's that dimension of you that's in His image. You have a soul. Your soul is the image of your spirit, and then your body is slave to your soul. That's why we go right back to dividing soul and spirit. And it's not just dividing soul and spirit, it's dividing soul, spirit, and body. Dividing the three that is one and combined and almost compressed into each other because of sin and what we birthed into. To divide them through Christ, which is the Word, so that they can be separate beings and reunited in Christ. So that my body is not slave to my soul, and my soul is not in the image of my spirit. Because remind yourself, the image of my spirit is dead and has no fullness of life. And because it's been connected to my soul, that it could never break free to be what it's supposed to be. But now that it's broken away from my spirit through the Word, it gets to go into the kingdom of heaven and refurbish, regather all the information that was lost over the years of being bound to my soul. Now, please also understand that I have to bring honor to my soul and I have to bring honor to my body. We have been taught to hate your body, because your body is a dead weight that's just going to die anyway and it's going to get buried. But the Father wants us to literally step out of that belief system, because your body is as much part of who you are as your soul and your spirit. And so we need to begin to honor our bodies. My body has taken me into a court many times. As a matter of fact, I was driving on my way here in a car and I just had an incredible time with the Lord. And in the engagement, I felt that I needed to begin to honor my body. Now, I've been a bodybuilder all my life, so I've never had any issues with my body. I've always loved my body. I'm always very proud of what I've accomplished. I never did bodybuilding in competitions. I had a couple of competitions I didn't enjoy it. Because I've never really used any steroids, I couldn't compete against these guys. So I just never really enjoyed the sport. I did some powerlifting and I did wrestling for a very, very long time. But my body has always been something I could honor. But as I get older, I look in the mirror and see things change. And the natural thought is, I'm not happy with that. I don't like this. I'm going to work a little bit harder on this. And there's almost an attack on my body from my soul, which is my will, mind, and emotion, that brings a negative connotation to my body and who my body is. And so driving in the car, I started feeling my body. I know that sounds really weird, but I started feeling my body. And I just, in the spirit, looked at myself and said, I love you. I love you. And I honored my body. And I began to honor my soul, the way I think, the way I perceive. And I just started worshiping and magnifying God. I started looking from my soul's perception to my spirit. And my soul started honoring my spirit for the engagement that it does in the heavens. So my spirit started looking at my soul and started honoring it for the way it's changed, and the way it's changed, the way it's thinking. And I started going into the different courts and started seeing what my spirit's done already in the earth and the things that's already aligned and changed. And so my soul was honoring my spirit for what it's been doing. And my soul and my spirit would look at my body and say, we honor you because of who you are and what you've become and how you're still to change because you need to become glorified. You need to understand that you can live forever. You need to understand that there's a dimensional shift that you can take place, so it can take place for you where everything changes. That's why we eat of him and drink of him, right? So there's much that's taking place that we need to begin to understand and accept. You know, the church has taught us very much the basics of what's on this side of the veil. Yeshua wants to teach us what's beyond the veil. So that's where we're going with this. That's why I can't read in scripture about the courts of heaven. There's logic to all of it, but we need to understand if there's three-dimensional word, and that which is written is a measure, that which is spoken is a measure, and that which is living is another measure. Now we engaging in that which is living, which is Yeshua, and all that is dimensionally his. So we're going in him, through him into the kingdom of heaven, where he begins to reveal to us the courts of heaven and the system, the judgical system, if that's the right word, that we need to begin to understand and operate in. That's what we're going to say it again. Judicial, yes. I'm making up words as I go along. Judicial. I always have a problem saying that. Judicial. As long as I remember Jew, I'm going to be okay with it. Okay, so Zechariah 3 verse 7 says, if you walk in my ways and if you will perform my services, then you will also govern my house and have charge of my courts. And I will grant you free access among those who are standing here. Just to let you know, this is the Father saying that he has more for you than what the church has told you is available. So if we are to run and govern his houses and his courts, then something needs to change in our perception. We've done the mobile court, and it's something we've never done. I've been in church for many, many years. I got saved when I was 19. And I had 3 years of Bible school where I got a bachelor's degree in theology. Then I did 2 years of Rhema Bible School, which is a mega church in our country, Rhema Corley, a brilliant Bible school. Then I did 3 years of my own church's Bible school, which is also a mega church, a little Force Christian church, which is really incredible. Then I did 4 years of my spiritual father's Bible school called Acts International. That was an associate's master's degree. And then I did a year with Bethel. It was a satellite school in South Africa, Cape Town. That's 13 years of theology, and not once was I taught about the mobile court. Not once. No one ever mentioned anything like it in any way, fashion, or form. And I don't understand that, because I begin to believe that if we listen and read Job just once, it becomes clear that it's a system that if we understand what happened there, it opens up everything. Now, we did this last week, but the mobile court's that takes place in this realm. Because the accusations, this is a court of accusations. The accuser cannot go into the kingdom of heaven and bring accusations there. So there has to be a place for him to bring accusations, because legally he has the right to accuse those who are accusable. That sounds terrible, but that's the fact. Because of the judicial way that the kingdom of heaven has occupied and run, that same system has to occupy in the earth. So the Father being just and justice, he has to make a way for the accusations to be made. Because that's the judicial way it has to be. I'm going to get it right. And so, if you read Ezekiel 1, Ezekiel 10, it's the mobile throne, which is also represented as the mobile court, the mobile system that comes into the earth, where the accuser can bring his accusations. Now, for many, many years, the accusations was made, and of course, when a mobile court is open, you have to understand that there's only one created creature in the entire created universe that has dominion and authority, and that is not God. I know that sounds like that's not possible. God is a sovereign God, and he has got all rights. Yes, he's sovereign, but he's also just. So what he spoke, what he said, he has to occupy, he has to do. And because he gave man dominion and authority, he cannot take dominion and authority. Right? So when the accuser comes and he brings an accusation against whether an individual, a group of people, a nation, a city, a state, a whatever, and there's no man that has dominion and authority standing in the gap or presents himself in the court, whatever the accusation is granted. You understand that, right? So now that there's men and women coming into the court, the mobile court, and we are presenting ourselves, Satan's accusations are being nullified and destroyed. He no longer has rights. So the access is being denied, and he no longer comes in with the force he used to. And we wanted to bind and rebuke him. We had all kinds of measures and ways of doing things. And we begin to realize that although we have the authority in the name of Yeshua, we never really had the power to overcome in the measure that the word promises. But now that we're operating out of the mobile court, we begin to understand the victory that the Father really intended for us, because we're shutting the access down and Satan can no longer come in full measure. That's the mobile court. But out of the mobile court, we have to remind ourselves that that's just a very lowest form of the court system. And that's an actual court where there's a judge, an advocate, there's the testimony, the ones who testifies for you, there's the witnesses, and then you have the crowds, which is the crowd of witnesses, the men in white linen, of course, the angels, and the seven spirits is your witnesses that testifies for you. Yeshua is the advocate that represents you. So that's the court system. But when you enter into the kingdom of heaven, the courts of heaven is a whole different system. There's no judge. There's chancellors, and there's men and women that governs these courts. The Father's desire for us to understand the difference and how these courts are there to benefit you and to propel you. It is most of the time, if I understand this right, these courts are rooms, massive, beautiful rooms, where you get to sit around a table and discuss the issue at hand. And slowly it gets worked out. Then from there, papers will be issued to you, where you can then take those papers of victory and go into the spirit realm, into the earth, or wherever the problem occurred, and settle it. We'll go through that as we go on. Again, my information regarding all this is not as what it could be, because I'm still learning, just like everyone else. But this is what I understand. You got the court of angels. Now, what I've understood of the court of angels, every time I go into the earth doing something regarding what the seven spirits is allocated to me, assignment to maybe slay a dragon, or to realign certain things in the earth, or to find a specific dimensional shift that needs to take place, aligning things, bringing creation back into position, governing certain states, I would have angels allocated to me for the specific task. They will mentor me, they will begin to teach me and reflect what needs to be done. And if there's a giant or dragon, in the very first couple of times that I was shown a dragon or a giant that needed to be slain, I had no idea how to do it, what to do. Everything was almost done automatically. So I would go to the court of angels, and I would get papers, and the papers that was given to me will have assigned angels, and these angels will come in with me and nullify the dragon. And the space that he occupied will then be re-established with the crimson roaring angel of that specific region, where he will be placed upon this mountain, and I will govern that mountain through the angelic that's there. I don't know how that makes sense, but that's kind of how I've experienced it. But before I even get to the court of angels, I would operate out of the court of war. Because I would be revealed, or something would be revealed to me, something would be shown to me, and I'm going to the court of war. And in the court of war, this is where strategies are released and given to the sons of God regarding cities, territories, tectonic plates, planets, solar systems, galaxies, and the universe. It is given to the sons of God in this court. It is a place where you get to go discuss what needs to be done. Now, I understand that it's not for your average little Christian that just wants to live a better life, that just wants to go to church on Sunday and hear about how wonderful Jesus is and how He's forgiven our sins and how we can pray to Him and He'll answer our prayers and He'll supply our needs. This goes a little bit deeper than that. This is for a company of people that understands all of that, the basics that we've already gone through, and wants to go to a place where we have eternal purpose, eternal destiny. This is for those who enter in and live in the kingdom of heaven, where He wants to train and equip you to become the son or daughter that you're meant to be. It's a deeper place. The court of war is where the counsel for war is given to the sons on what to do, where to do it, and how to do it. I have gone into this course several times to figure out what I need to do regarding certain things. I remember going across a bridge, and I saw in the spirit, and I wasn't really looking, but as I went through this bridge, I saw this massive dragon just lying over the bridge, occupying a mountain. Now, a mountain in the spirit doesn't actually have to be a mountain. It's a place that has been allocated to the church to have authority over, but it's occupied by a demonic entity. I say demonic entity, but it's a higher rank than powers and principalities and rules of the darkness of the age. It's the dimension higher than that. That's where the Revelations talk about dragons. And if you go back to the Old Testament, it talks about giants. And we begin to understand that when these beings die, there's a remnant that's left behind that literally begins to take space that is not allocated to them. Satan has the capacity to steal or take anything that the church doesn't occupy. So we begin to believe that we can't go out into the atmosphere. We begin to believe that we can't see in the spirit. We can't speak to angels. We can't do any of these things. And of course, everything that Satan has in hand belongs to him, and we don't want to come near it. So Satan takes astrology and makes it his. So the Christians don't want to go near it. Satan has the ability, the capacity to take things that he knows, if we understand the value of it, will destroy his works. So the church in their ignorance rejects all of that and says, well, it belongs to Taoism and pantheism, it belongs to the Satanists and the New Age, and it belongs to this yin-yang and whatever other religion is out there. So it's theirs, not ours. But slowly but surely the Father is bringing to our remembrance that it's actually ours and it belongs to us. We need to realign it and put it back in the fullness of the truth that it's destined to be, so that the enemy can understand who we are. We are the ones with dominion and authority over it, not him. He has one place of residence, and that's under my feet. Right? The only place that he has is under my feet. In this place, in the court of war, we receive scrolls of victory. I love that because I have many times gone into certain places in the earth where the Father showed me to do certain things through the seven spirits, which I didn't understand, and I don't have anybody I can call and say, listen, this is what I needed to do, this is what I see, this is what I'm experiencing, what do I do? I don't have a pastor that I can call, and if I do, he'll think I'm crazy. But they just don't understand this stuff because they choose not to. Right? It's just their choice. It's not something that we do because of ignorance. It's something we choose not to do. We don't want to go deeper. We don't want to go higher. We don't want to go wider. We want to keep what we have according to what we've been taught in theology, in seminaries. Same thing. I did all of the seminaries and the cemeteries, and they were kind of all the same. Because when you're receiving revelation from man that receives revelation from man that receives revelation from man that receives revelation from man, what you're getting is a revelation from man. Yes. And of course it says in Isaiah 2, a company of people in the last days will go into the mountain of the Lord and receive directly from the Father. So I believe we are that company of people, and we're going into the mountain of Yahweh, and He's beginning to teach us things as mysteries and secrets. Okay, then you have the court of scrolls. As a matter of fact, let me just quickly go to the court of war. I remember going into the court of war, and I desperately needed to understand something, and I couldn't perceive it. There was certain things that would happen, and the Father showed me 12 states. It was the very first 12 states given, and each of these states, there was dragons and giants that needed to be taken out. I've gone into the courts, I've asked for strategy, how to do it, what to do, where to do it, and how to nullify the works of these demonic entities, so that the principal warring angels that was just waiting to establish their mountains and go back into it can be established. And I didn't know how to do it, I didn't know what to do. And I remember going into the courts, and I was kind of just trying to figure this out. And of course, like I've said many times, there's no books you can read. And I remember being at a conference with Ian, and I asked him what needs to happen. And he made such a silly little statement. He says, when you come back out of the kingdom of heaven, open up your spirit cavity and let that presence breathe into the earth. And you will see exactly what happens to these dragons and these giants. And as I came back in the atmosphere, and I did that, everything that I wanted to establish was established. The dragons and the giants was nullified. The papers were given to me all in one breath. The papers of notification was given to me. The angelic beings was re-established. The canopies of these angelic beings was re-established on the mountains. The diamonds and the rubies and the gold and all the treasures that was in the giants and the dragons was taken out, put into my mountain, and I began to trade for these nations, or these states. And everything just fell into place. That, I believe, is what the court of war is all about. That's where you sit down and strategies are given regarding what you need to be doing. Does that make sense?
Did you have any revelation on what specific mountains or whatever that they were occupying for you? Like
I haven't started the process, but there were states that was governed, things that was taken from the church, things that was taken from the government of these states. And so what I basically do in the Spirit is I re-establish what was written on the scroll for the different states, in alignment with what the Father wants for each person living in these states, for what the government of the states are meant to be like, rules, regulations, things that can change, that should change, that I won't personally go talk to somebody about, but I will legislate it in the Spirit so that things can start falling into place. Then you have the court of scribes. This is where the record of you is kept. This is where you would want to go into to find your destiny scroll, right? We understand that there is more than one book. As a matter of fact, the first one is the record of what you came out of heaven with and the testimony of your life. This is where you already agreed to what was written on your scroll before you were sent to your mother's womb. So Yahweh would take your scroll and he would start reading what needs to be done. You would say yes, and you would agree, and you would be sent to your mother's womb. The process of your birth, of course, you birth into sin, and then the process of you having to get born again or born from above, then you have to re-accept that destiny. And when you begin to go back into the kingdom of heaven to get your scroll again, to see what you need to do, there's a lot of changes that needs to take place, because most of the time we've done a lot of works of iniquity, things that we do out of our own self, things that we do according to man, what they wanted us to do. And of course we are conditioned to believe that's the right way and the only way. So when we start going into the heavens and you get your scroll, you're kind of freaked out, because what you used to do and what you're supposed to do is two different things. That's what happened to me. The second one is what you have done, and what you have done, what you were to do and what you wanted to do. Let me try that again. This is what you have done, what you were supposed to do, and what you wanted to do. Right? That's exciting. And of course you have to choose the right thing, because we want to do certain things because of what we've perceived and what we've understood up to this point. But we have to do specific things, but of course the church has taught us a whole different way. Now the church didn't teach us these things because they are angry at us and they want to be spiteful and teach us the wrong stuff. You only teach what you receive. You only give what you know. And of course, up to this point, the church hasn't been given all that much because we've received everything from man. I remember where a friend of mine came and told me that Yahweh has been sitting with him, speaking to him face to face, and I almost rebuked him because I couldn't believe that. That's ridiculous. Where do you get that? That never happened in the Bible. That sounds satanic. That's probably a demon. That was my perception of what I was taught. Nowadays, that's the only way I communicate with Yahweh. I go into the mountain, I sit with him, I speak to him. Now, it's not an audible voice, it's a knowing, because he's the head and I'm the body. It's a whole different way of communication. I don't pray, oh Father, I just want you to please bless me and my family. Thank you, you're such a wonderful, beautiful God. I don't do that anymore. I go to the heaven and I communicate with him, because we are one. I've never taught that. And thirdly, you want to, the scroll is to dictate your maturity of responsibility in the heavens, and the reward you receive when you go there. There is two books, one with your name, one with your works. The Father has destined you to do some things. We have to remind ourselves that our purpose is not just on the earth. Part of what we need to do has to take place in the earth, because this is the womb. Right? In the womb, a child doesn't really do much. You receive everything from the mother. That's what's happening with us right now. We're receiving everything from Yahweh. But we have to understand, once we go into the fullness of eternity, there's a destiny that we have. They talk about cities, they talk about galaxies that each individual, as a son or daughter, has to manage or run. That's why we are kings. He's the king of kings, and we are kings that will bring judgment. A king has to be able to judge. We have to begin to understand what our place in creation is. And these scrolls kind of opens up for us what we need to do. That's why I said it's more than one scroll. You know, if I look at my life, I have a family life, and they are not really different, but there's different things that I need to do in these portions of my life. In my financial life, in my family life, in my personal life, in my social life, in my spiritual life. Each of these parts of my life has different scroll dimensions in it, if that makes sense. That I have to engage and open up so that I can operate according to what the Father has for me. And I remember for my family, I went into the mountain with the Lord and I engaged with a specific being, and he said to me, he said one thing to me, he said, if I can give you the best advice, and I need you to follow this, it will be that you have to be a spiritual father to your own children. That was one of the things for my family. That's one of the things that's written on my scroll, things that I need to focus on, that I need to do. It's not the easiest thing on the planet. Kids don't do what you tell them to do. They only do what you do. No, most of the time, unless you're a woman. I don't know if it's just my wife, but if my wife says stop, then they stop. I can say stop, stop it, and I have to begin to scream at the top of my lungs, and then they still won't stop. My wife just says stop, and they're like, okay, Mom, I don't get it.
Not with me.
Right? Not with you. I'm telling you, there's something going on here. Not always, and that's an exaggeration. That's how we roll, right? Of course, the idea of the course is to take you deeper into maturity. All of what the kingdom of heaven represents to you is to lead you to a deeper place of maturity. The fourth one is every thought and intent of your heart that's recorded. Now that's kind of scary because everything you have thought and the intent of your heart in any situation, all things recorded in the kingdom of heaven. And I remember a friend of mine saying something to me one day. He said the Father addressed him regarding the way he hugs women. It doesn't look bad. It isn't bad. Not in any way, fashion, form. Most of the church hugs women on the side. I don't like that. It doesn't matter. Whichever way you want to hug me, I'm a hugger, so I need a hug. But the Father looked at him and presented this and said that the intent of your heart is impure. Now, I have said this many times. It can look like a normal, clean hug, but it's the thoughts and intents of the heart that perverses it. That's why we struggle to give holy kisses in the church, right? We don't understand that my brother and my sister is not part of who I am. You know, we are as one, but I have a wife, and everybody else is a sister or a brother, and there is not meant to be any filthy thought. Although there could be, and there probably will be, but it's your responsibility to manage it. When you enter into the kingdom of heaven, all those thoughts are echoed into the heavens. That's why you don't talk in the kingdom of heaven like I'm talking now. It's the thought and intent of your heart that's exposed. That's why the most holy man in the nation steps into the court and he's as filthy rags presented before the Father. But they have to give him a new robe, a new turban on his head because he was filthy, but he's the holiest man in the nation. So your works cannot make you pure. Your works cannot set you apart. It's only through the blood. And we begin to understand it's through the blood that we are cleansed, and of course you having to present yourself to the Father as a living sacrifice daily until it's actually understood and you're walking in full fruition of it. Then we have the court of chancellors. The chancellors are the sons of God. Now there's an extreme eschatology or creation theology in this that I don't want to go into right now. They talk about two creations. The first creation is where the sons of God was created, and then the second creation is where Adam was created. And in the first creation there were sons of God, many was created, and also those are the ones that went into the earth and had sexual relationships with the females in the earth. Now, how that works, where that comes from, I really don't have an understanding of that. I'm still engaged in this court. But what I understand of it is that that we have the ability to administrate galaxies and administrate the arms of these galaxies out of this course, to remind us that there is more to what we are and who we are than just what's needed to be managed in the earth. The Father has given us all of creation, and we need to begin to understand how to operate in. So the court of chancellors is the something happened. That is what's the first creation, and Adam and Eve's children before they left the garden. It is also the sons of God that was created. So there's a dimension of leadership that we haven't even touched base on yet. Of course, the Father looked at Adam and Eve and said, multiply, before they were kicked out of heaven. So did they multiply? What happened? What happened to the sons and daughters that multiplied into the creation, into paradise, into Eden, into the earth after they fell? Because they didn't fall with Adam and Eve, did they? As far as we understand, they didn't. There were only two sons physically birthed, and of course more at a later stage when it was Cain and Abel, and Cain was birthed of a different seed. So the sons and daughters that was not taken out of Eden became sons of God, different than what we are, different creation. Of course, we are restored back into the image of Yeshua. That is a whole different dimension of light that these created beings were operating in and out of. But the Father wants us to understand, in this court, we get to speak to them, govern with them, walk with them, and they want to bring us to the place where we understand the leadership that we have in the galaxies. And the desire I believe the Father has with this court is to let you understand that you are more than what you perceive you are up to this point. He is bringing you to a place of full maturity where you get to govern different galaxies. Now, if you've listened to Ian before, he's got a teaching where he basically created a galaxy. Now, we don't always understand that or believe that, but I remember being taken out into the creation with the Father, and he gave me a handful of pebbles. It looked like little stones, and I said, well, what do I do with this? And he told me to throw it into the atmosphere. And as I threw it into the atmosphere, it became the stars of the galaxy. Now, that was as far as what I went with that, and it was incredible. But slowly but surely, the Father is teaching a company of people how to operate in these courts and how to understand what our governance bring, and that he wants us to grow and become chancellors. That's why it says that you will govern my courts, and you will govern my house, and you will take charge of my courts. He wants us to run, he wants us to understand who we are and go in full fruition with it. Then you guys still okay? Am I confusing you? I know that I've not engaged the Court of Chancellors as much as what I could. I just don't understand it. And I know that Ian doesn't talk much about it. There's no real explanation too much. What I've engaged just sitting in this court, looking and watching, is what I just shared with you guys. As much as what I know. Now, every time I share this, I've engaged it more and I'll have a greater understanding. But for now, that's what it is. Then we have the Court of the Upright. This is the men in white linen, the spirit of just men made righteous, who carry and authorize the mandate your baton carry process on the face of the earth. What basically happens here is these men have passed away and they are in the kingdom of heaven, but they have seen what your day looks like. It's like a what do you call that race? A relay race, where each one has a specific place, and after he's run the race, though the first one runs, he doesn't just stop, pack up and leave. He keeps on cheering for the others. Now the batons and the process and the mandates that's given to us is so that we can be propelled. The desire of the men in white linen, the spirit of just men made righteous, is to take us to a higher place in the earth, to propel us in what we are destined to do. That's why the engagement into these beings is phenomenal. And to remind you, we are not speaking to the dead. You know, lately I've been engaging with David. So what I would do is I would go to the kingdom of heaven, and I would find the room of wine. I don't know if that's what you call it, but that's what it looked like to me. It looks like a cellar. And you would go in there, and I would see a name on one that I want to engage, and I would start drinking of this wine. I would sit down at the table, and I would pour into the glass, and I would start drinking it, and I would taste his life. And I would begin to engage him. I would go to the Word, and I would start listening to his birth, to his life, to who he was. Finally, I would be presented in the kingdom of heaven with him sitting with me face to face, and we will begin to engage. I've done that with Joshua just recently, where we sat for about an hour and a half, and he just prophesied over me. Just spoke into my life what he saw. And I remember my pastor, my senior pastor, comes up to me now. Just to give you an idea, we have a church of about 4,500 people that's seated on Sunday, and the membership's about 20,000. So to see the pastor and see a pastor, it's like not going to happen. To speak to him is absolutely not going to happen. You know, he's got his little room in the back. He's finished preaching, he goes to his room. You know, so it's not like you can engage with him or speak to him. And it's not, he's not trying to be rude, but 5,000 people wanting to engage with one man, it's just not going to happen. That's why he's got 20 other pastors that goes into different districts so that they can talk and you can ask a question. But he comes up to me one day and he says to me, "You're a Joshua." And so I was like, wow, that was a great word. That's all he's ever said to me is, "You're a Joshua." So what I did is I really went in to study the word, wanted to get to know who Joshua was. And once I got the revelation that I can go into the kingdom of heaven, I started engaging with him. And he just opened up dimensions of who my life is and who I am and who he is and why we are the same. What do I need to do? And I looked at his life, the engagement, the worship, the adoration, the love he had for Yahweh, the deep intensity in his love for the Father and how incredible his life was. And I got to understand that. I'm doing the same right now with David. I just started with it, so it's a process. But these men want to hand out badness. They want to give mantles and mandates to propel you deeper into the kingdom of heaven, so you can become what you need to be and need to do what needs to be done. Right? They trade into your life as you start making the right choices, and they place mantles on your shoulders. At this point, I've received 3 mantles, 2 from saints I do not know, which were fire and intimacy, which is incredible, and 1 that I received from Noah. It was a mantle of love. And of course, I had to engage it several times to really understand it. Because the first time I got the mantle of love, I didn't quite know who it was that gave it to me. I had to go back in and slowly but surely it will unfold it, because you can only perceive what you understand. You can only perceive what you have record of in your being. I don't have any record of meeting up with any of the old saints in any way, fashion, or form. Matter of fact, it was weird to me, so I didn't even try. So as I got more comfortable going into the Spirit, these revelations opened up to me. Right, excited a minute. Then we've got the Court of the Kings. This is all the sons living on the earth that have their mountain and their throne on their mountain. This is sons of light, me and you, on the earth that occupies the mountain the Father has dedicated to you. That which is written on your scroll, the complete and utter surrender of your life to Him, where He has placed you on a throne inside of your mountain where you rule and reign. It is that place where you have cleaned out the garden, you have slayed the dragon, you present yourself in this mountain in this full occupation of who you are as a son of Yahweh. And from that place, the Father begins to elevate you to a higher position. It's the surrender, full surrender. Because when it talks about mountains, it talks about your place of rule. That dimension in your life that the Father has given you to occupy. Right? And of course, it's a process for us to get to that full understanding of what's mine and what I need to walk in. It is the process of maturity from the government of the seat of rest. Of course, you get into the understanding of the seat of rest when you occupy your own throne and you live out on your own mountain. It's that place in your life where you have given all and everything over to Yahweh. We'll begin to understand that as soon as you actually do that. And I know that some of us already understand it, but the Father wants to place us in that position of rest and that seat of rest where we are mature in the position that we are at and the place that we're walking in at the moment that we're in, if that makes sense. Because I can be mature for a 5-year-old, but I am immature if I'm related to a 10 or 20-year-old. Ian's been walking this for 39 years. I've been doing this for 7 years. So I'm a baby in all of this. I don't have understanding. When I do things, I do it like a child will do it. I understand it like a child will understand it. That's why I can relate it to you only in the measure that I perceive it. When Ian teaches it, he teaches it out of the measure that he understands it. So it's from a higher dimension of truth. It's a higher place. That's why most people don't understand anything he says. Of course, the ones that do understand still have to go back and meditate on it, because it's something you then have to go engage and really get grip of before you can really walk in it. Now, for me to walk in these courts, I had to understand what it even means to have a mountain. But slowly but surely in my life, I saw the engagements of, first I remember standing in front of a gate, and I couldn't get into the gate. There was this massive dragon wrapped around, not just the gate, around the whole mountain. And I couldn't understand that. Then I was given a sword, and I took the sword, didn't know what to do. And in a moment of time, I had this revelation of how to use the sword. And I started running around the mountain with it stuck into the belly of this dragon. I ran out around it, and I slayed it. As I slayed it, the gates opened. When I walked in, it was just dead. Everything was just gray. There was nothing in it. Slowly but surely, I began to walk in. I took some of the seeds, the fruit that I had in my life. I started planting trees. I started putting in flowers. I started bringing in all kinds of stuff. And as I started going deeper into this mountain of mine, I started seeing flowing of water. I started seeing waterfalls. I started seeing these beautiful gems and diamonds and rubies and gold popping up all over the place. As I went deeper in surrender, this mountain became alive. And then, of course, I found myself going deeper and deeper into this specific place given to me, and I saw a place where I could go sit, a place of rulership. And as I sat down, there's another dimension that opened up, another place where the Father began to show me my place of rule, my place of rest in Him. And slowly from that position, I started going deeper into the kingdom of heaven. Are you guys okay? It's a place of lordship. This is where you give your life over to Him and He becomes your Lord. Once He becomes Lord of your life, you become a Lord. Does that make sense? Once you become a Lord, you understand you have ownership of the land. That's what a Lord does. He owns land. But I live in a house. I have a landlord. She owns the house. I rent from her. She's my landlord. Does that make sense?
Yes.
It is the rest in His lordship. Okay, then we've got the court of the fathers. Now, I love this court because it was not one of my first, but one of the most visual, intense encounters I've had. I remember being in soaking, and as I was soaking, just spending time in the heavens and in the courts, trying to figure things out there, I felt a doorway open, and it almost like push a shift deeper into a court that I've never been in. And it was the court of fathers. And access to this court is open when you father someone to maturity. Now, I remember at this specific time, one of my spiritual daughters, Rebecca Leatherman, she shifted in the spirit from one level to another. And she matured to a place where she could be looked at as a mature daughter in Christ. Now, you get levels of maturity, but when you reach a certain place in your growth, you become a mature son. So if I look at my 18-year-old, I don't have an 18-year-old son, but if I look at an 18 or a 17-year-old son, the idea is that he is mature and he gets to become a responsible young man at this age. Like if I look at the Jacob, Crystal's son, Gabriel, that's right. If I look at Gabriel, he's what, 17, 18 years old, and he's very mature for his age. So I look at him as a grown man. I don't look at him as a little child. I look at him as a grown man because he's reached a certain place in his life where he's now mature. And I believe that we get to be treated like that. And I looked at Rebecca in the spirit, and she's reached a certain place in her life, and now I don't take all credit for it, but she has engaged with all her heart. She has come to every meeting I've had. She has traded into every teaching I taught. She traded into everything we do as a family. She's always giving into us, and she doesn't have money to do it. She does everything by faith. As a matter of fact, the Lord said to her, move out of your house and let Gustav and his family move in there. And you pay half the rent, and they pay other half the rent. Now that's incredible. She's I don't know what you call it, she's an ex-Marine. She's got a pension. It's not $1 million. But yet, by faith, she wanted to trade in to us because she wanted to grow spiritually. Now, I look at her life and I see the fruits. And because of her growth, I got to shift into this court. This is where it can be seen as the place of the apostles, but not necessary. Because you have led someone to maturity doesn't mean you're an apostle. But you are a spiritual father. And that's the idea of this court. It's spiritual fathers that operate. This is also where you would meet up with Abraham, Isaac, Jacob. I don't know how to pronounce Melchizedek, Malachizedek. There's so many different ways of saying his name. I believe Malach said that is the right way of saying it, but it just doesn't sound right when I say it because I was taught that it's Melchizedek. But whatever, I don't want to dishonor him. He is one of the chancellors in the courts and is a very honorable being there. So calling him Mel, calling him weird names is not what I want to try and do. But to honor these men, when you go into these courts, they teach you how to bring things into the position that you're meant to be in as a leader that you are. As how we are to father creation into place. Wealth comes from being a father in this courts. I'm still waiting for that one. Due to the responsibility and position. Now, the Father has given me excessive responsibility. Now, I say it's excessive responsibility for me as a 7-year-old in all of this, although I've been a Christian for 30 years. I've really only been walking these revelations for the last 7 years, so I still feel like a baby. So this is heavy upon me, but it's not heavy, if that makes sense. Because the Father will never put that pressure on you. As I grow into it, the Father has given me a responsibility, and I'm still stepping into the fullness of the responsibility of who I am. So I believe that as I grow in it, the financial support that's needed will come in its full force. But it's not something that's desperately needed right now. The Father has given us a measure, and it sustains us. And slowly but surely will increase as we take responsibility for what's given to us as we grow and mature. But I feel that's the Father's desire. Then you've got the Court of the Judges. It's all about kingdom government. It's where high judicial decrees are issued from regarding the Earth, our solar system, and galaxies. This is a court system that is outside of our perception in the natural. It's not about the demons. It's not about sickness and disease. It's not about your lack of finances. This is where the Father takes a company of people into creation and showing us what needs to be aligned, what needs to be pulled into place, what needs to be governed out of the heaven into earth to bring everything back into alignment. That's exciting, right? You cannot be in this court unless you have been in the court of fathers, which means to get into the court of judges, you have to let someone into maturity before you can even sit in this court. Now, I have not really actively been involved in this court. I have only sat in it to see how it operates, and I haven't really understood much out of it either. But slowly but surely, I'm gaining revelation as I go deeper and deeper into it. Right? Everything in this course about responsibility and what was given to you to judge, what was given to you to manage, what was given to you to govern. Judgment is always to life and love, and of course, judgment to death is only to that which is situated outside of Christ. That makes any sense. Then we've got the Court of 70. I'm almost done, guys. Calm down. The Court of 70 is what they call the Galactic Council. I have not been in this court in any way, fashion, or form. I have seen it operate in the earth. So I have sat in this court just to see how it works, but I have not touched in any way, fashion, or form anything regarding how it works, what it does. It's just almost just what Ian's taught, and he hasn't taught anything about it, really. The little bit that said, yeah, is all he's ever said about it. But it's called the Galactic Council. I remember a man of God dying, and in the spirit he came to me. I'd only met him once, and he came to me and he shook my hand and said, "You get in my place at the table." Now they say there's a table of 70, and I've not engaged it much. I've spoken to Grant about it, and he said, yes, you could have a place at the 70, but it's not fully occupied yet. You have to grow into it. So I don't even know if this is part of that. I don't think it is. But the Galactic Council is where death and life is judgicated for nations, planets, and for us. The meeting starts at the end of February every year, and it works in 70-day cycles. We have 70 days of judgment, 70 days of justice, 70 days of grace, and 70 days of mercy. Then it's a time of rest, and it starts again in February every year. The judgment of this court is not against man, but demonic powers that has bound nations. So the idea of this court is to align creation to what it's meant to be. And of course, the sons of God brings the issue into this court, and it gets judged. That's my understanding of it. Then we've got the court of the Lord. This is the Yosod of God, the counsel of the Lord. This is where you will find the counsel of God, a functional arm of the Father's desire. Father, Son, and Holy Spirit is here and want you to be there to handle creation. It's a little bit more than just sitting on your knees and praying, coming to church on Wednesday and Sundays. It's a responsibility the Father has. I remember, and I probably shared it with you before, and I'm going to close with this. I remember the Father taking, actually it was Wisdom led me to a door and she left and said that I can't go any further and I have to go myself. So as I opened this door, beautiful, massive door, and I went in, it was this huge white room, intense. There was 4 thrones that looked like one. I don't know how to explain that. But I remember seeing the Father, Son, and Holy Spirit sitting there, and it didn't look right. So as I walked into the door and I sat on that throne, everything fell into place. Almost like this is how it's meant to be. The Father has desired a company of people to step into the yasat, where the fulfillment of who we are in Him is established. I remember Him then stepping off that throne, taking a walk with me, putting his hand on my neck, gently, thank God. And it was a very intense time for me. If I have to express that feeling, it was really almost scary. Terror came over me, fear. Not like I'm scared of Him. It was like, wow, this is real, this is incredible, this God is more than I ever fathomed Him to be. And He looked at me and He said, there's just too much for us to do as what's on your scroll and what needs to be established in the earth for you to continue to play around. And I wasn't playing around, I just entered into the kingdom of heaven and I was really just having fun. I was just really exploring everything, but I guess it took too long. I don't know what was the problem. I had issues. Anyway, the Father said to me, there's just too much written on your scroll, too much that needs to be done for you to continue playing around on this. Then of course I got angry and I didn't go back in for at least 2 weeks. Then He had to reprimand me on that again. Our Daddy. But His desire for us is to slowly but surely. For me, it's been 7 minutes, and there's no information on the courts per se except what I just gave you. It is your responsibility to go into the kingdom of heaven and engage it as hard as you can. I do this almost daily, and the information that I've gained has changed, and it's always different. I've operated out of some of these courts, other than the court of angels and the court of war, court of scribes. I have operated out of the court of kings, court of fathers, and I've touched base on the court of judges. I thought I was in the court of 70 and I had an understanding of it, but I actually don't all that much. And then I believe I've been in the court of the Lord, but again, all I've done there was getting rebuked by the Father. I sat on the throne to see the fulfillment of what the Father has destined for us, but it is almost not even the touch of the hem of His garment to what it's meant to be. So there's still so much to be revealed, and it's your responsibility as a son or daughter to go into it and find what the Father wants to say. He has books by Robert Henderson that can explain some of the things. I'm going to try and teach next week on the 9 voices in heaven, things that you find in the courts that you can have understanding and bring you to a great understanding. We're still going to continue with some of the courts of accusation, the different types of accusations made against us. So we're not quite finished with the courts yet, but I just wanted to get the heavenly courts done so we can kind of find ourselves in the process of dealing with the courts, going into it as often as we can in the kingdom of heaven. If you're still struggling to go into the kingdom of heaven, go back to some of the teachings you've done already and get the revelation. Because it's really in activating your imagination so you can go in and see it. But then you have to believe what you see. When you start believing what you're seeing, then revelation starts opening up for you. Let's stand. Father, we just want to worship and praise and glorify you for allowing us to go in, for these doors to open up, for us to begin to slowly but surely have understanding of what's not really been revealed to us all that much, but we are engaging in the mystery, Father. We're engaging into the secret, Father. We're going into the living word, and it's beginning to open up for us. We're beginning to believe what we see, beginning to understand what's being revealed, and slowly but surely we're gaining ground. Father, we're excited, and I ask you in the name of Yeshua that you open the heart of everyone in this room. And I know that what we sometimes subconsciously desire is give me the scripture for this stuff. I don't believe what you're telling me. I want to see it in the word. Otherwise it can't be true. But Father, I know that you have called us to a high dimension. You have said in your word that we will do greater things than what Yeshua did in the earth. And what is greater than the things he did in the earth cannot be written in a book that was given by man in the earth, so that we enter in behind the veil, where you teach us out of the mouth of God, out of Zion itself. And slowly but surely we begin to understand that as Paul established the word in the New Testament, so the sons of God will establish as legislators and oracles the words into the earth, Father. We are not eliminating the word of God, but we understand that there's dimensions of it, and so we're taking the living, we're taking the written, we're taking the spoken, and we're presenting it as one and engaging it in all of it, and opening up to us mysteries and secrets, and the courts of those mysteries and secrets that we have to begin to understand, so that the judicial understanding that's needed for what takes place out of heaven into the earth, for things to fall into place, for creation that has called on the sons for generations, is beginning to slowly but surely get aligned by those who mature and walk in full understanding of the course. So Father, propel us deeper into it, open our hearts, and let us begin to understand with revelation regarding these things. In the name of Yeshua. Amen.